Hey guys, what's going on? Day, what would this be, like 2.5?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just woke up. It rained a lot last night. All the puddles and stuff everywhere. But I thought that it would be a good day to go ahead and stop at the Clarke Homestead early in the morning and take a quick tour of it.
So during the American Revolution, Clarke was a Revolutionary War hero, especially in this area. This used to be known as Wilkes County. This is the first county that was ever established in Georgia. And so he was known as the hero of the Hornet's Nest. This area was known as the Hornet's Nest by the British, mainly because Clarke and his best friend John Dooley were so problematic for the British, and they caused them so much trouble, that it was known as the Hornet's Nest. Even when Augusta and Savannah at certain times fell to the British during the war, this area always remained under the Patriots, mainly because of Clarke and Dooley. If you guys have seen the movie The Patriot,
yes.
Anybody? So Clarke is one of the inspirations for Benjamin Martin, the main character.
Wow.
Okay.
So like how they did the guerrilla warfare and stuff, that was
One
a
of
big.
my favorite.
It's so good.
The book that's in the shop, King's Mountain,
I'm not certain actually.
There's a book in there. I was just wondering. It talks about the British fighting in this area, and
I think we recently got that one, so I haven't actually checked it out. The book I know in there front to back is that Under the Lake book.
Right.
It's mainly just pictures of cabins that were covered. Oh, so actually, fun fact, this is a replica of the original cabin. It's exact before they put this over here. They went to the original cabin, measured everything, took lots of pictures so they could exactly replicate it over here. But the original is actually under the lake now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when they filled in the lake, they filled in the area that this originally would have been in. The graves of Clarke and his family were moved over here before they filled in the lake. And the Daughters of the American Revolution actually are the ones who got the funding and everything sorted out in order to bring it over here.
Okay.
So yeah. If you go over there, you'll see Clarke's headstone, Hannah Clarke's headstone, who's his wife. 9 unmarked graves that we think are servants or slaves. And then we believe the last one is one of their daughters. I personally think that it's the daughter who got divorced and ended up living with them later, because divorce at the time was not really a thing. So, yeah. This cabin is called a dog trot style cabin. The dog trot is this thing we're in right here, the breezeway. This one's extra wide. And that's because this was as much of a fort as it was a house. So this had to be able to have, since Clarke was such a leader at the time, he also was in charge of the local militia, even not in times of war. And so they had to be able to house wagons and horses and supplies through here. So it had to be wide enough to fit that. This wood wouldn't have been here. This would have just been dirt. And it would have been swept flat every night before you went to sleep. And your dogs would be tied up around here. And that was your alarm system. If anybody came through here who shouldn't be, your dogs would let you know. And you'd see the footprints the next day. So yeah. And then this first room we're going to go into is Clarke's study.
Hold it, baby.
Come on, buddy. Come with LaLa.
Is that soft?
Yeah. Especially with the rain, it makes that musky smell come out.
This is what room?
This is Clarke's study. It's kind of like a colonial man cave.
Ah.
So women and children were never allowed in here. This is where he would meet with militia members and other leaders. He would lock it from the inside, and if you see up there, you see a blanket poking out of the ceiling. There's a hole right there that he could climb up into his bedroom from. So that's how he would lock it from the indoors and go up.
Oh, wow.
We used to have a ladder there until someone fell off it. So this is Clarke's real sword for when he was in charge of his own cavalry. Throughout the houses, anytime you see these little stickers with numbers, those are originals from Clarke's house. Also, a lot of the metal you'll see was taken off of the original house and brought over here. So like on the doors and windows. Yeah. These things are portholes for guns. They open out. And that's because, like I said, this was a fort as much as it was a house. And so anytime they were under siege from Native Americans or anyone, they would close all the shutters and open these. And that's why they could shoot out. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
If you'll see that tri-horn hat back there, I learned through this job that that's essentially a rain gutter for your head. So anytime it rains, it pushes the water off to your shoulders rather than into your face. I've always seen those from colonial stuff, but. And then we have a few replicas of their rifles and things in here. Elijah Clarke's actual sword actual gun was said to be about 5.5 feet tall, almost as tall as me. Yeah. This is this is the shaving horse. This would have been outside actually, but we keep it in here just to keep it safe from weather.
You're getting stuck in here.
And what you do is you sit right here and you use your feet to work the pedal to keep your wood in place. And that's how they would make all the shingles for the roof and other little wooden things.
Yeah, we actually saw that used at O'Lusty down, it's like right in the middle of Jacksonville and Lake City in Florida.
Oh, nice.
So.
Yeah, there's a few people around here,
Patrick.
especially who, like in Lincolnton and such, who know how to use all this stuff. And then the next room we're going to go into is going to be Hannah Clarke's sewing room. Sewing room, over here. There's a sewing room. Yes, so this was her woman cave, if you will. Hannah Clarke's woman cave. It's her sewing room. At the time, it was highly unusual for a woman to get a sewing room. Normally, you would do this kind of work in the barn, which is why this is called a barn loom. This is Hannah Clarke's original loom. It's still functional. You can see that someone has started making a blanket over on this end. Wasn't me. I don't know how this works. This is how you would light up your work if you wanted to work when it wasn't light enough out. You'd put your candles here, light them.
That's her original room.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So you guys, when you go buy your clothes, you go out and buy them, right, at a store. So back then, you didn't just go out and buy clothes. You had to make them all the way from scratch. So you'd start with pieces of wool and flax, and you'd use those, and you'd spin them into yarn, and eventually you'd use the loom to create linen and wool items. And if you mixed the two, you got linsey woolsey, which is a fabric that was really popular back then. So like I said, you start off with your wool, and then you spin it on here into yarn.
Is this her original spinning wheel?
No, not this one. This is old, just not from Elijah Clarke's. So this is the walking wheel, and you would walk back and forth in order to spin your yarn. And it was said that women could walk up to 20 miles a day just doing this. Got your steps in.
This is cool.
Wow.
Yeah, and then that thing back there is my favorite thing in here. And it's the mulberry bush. And if you guys have ever heard that little song, All Around the Mulberry Bush, yeah, that's this. That's what they're talking about. You'll see the handle is all the way down here, and that's because this was a job for a really little kid, like a 3 or 4-year-old. And they would spin and collect the yarn as their mom made it. And in order to keep the right timing, they'd sing the song, because they didn't want to go too fast or too slow while their mom was spinning. And at the end of the song, you hear "Pop goes the weasel." This is the weasel, and it will pop up when it means that they need to collect how much yarn they have on here to put on a spool.
And that was for 3-year-olds?
Yeah, really little kids.
So aren't you guys lucky?
Another fun fact of the time is little kids. So the British would tax your children. So if you had more kids, you paid more in taxes. And since back then kids didn't necessarily survive as much as they do today, if you were from a poor family, you wouldn't claim your children with the government until they were 3 or 4. So Elijah Clarke's headstone is actually wrong. So his headstone says, I think 1736, but we believe that he was born in 1733. And 1736 is actually when he's claimed. And a lot of Revolutionary War headstones are actually like that. So his wife is from a really wealthy family, so her birth date's correct, because they claimed her as soon as she was born.
What's the difference between this and that one?
This is a standing spindle, I believe, and it does the same thing for the most part. Just collects your yarn. Upstairs, I normally just let people kind of roam around because it's a little shorter in there and it's not as well furnished.
So she doesn't have an escape door.
No, she just has a staircase, a boring staircase. So the first room would have been where the girls of the family slept. The middle room is where the boys would have slept, and then the far room is where Elijah and Hannah would have slept. They had 8 children that we know of, so keep that in mind. Lots of kiddos.
These are horses.
Don't touch. Wow.
Don't run, baby. Don't run, Patrick. This is really old and it's scary, okay? Wow.
No, baby.
That's that escape hatch that she was talking about downstairs.
No, baby.
I want to fly.
No, this isn't a steering wheel. This is really old. Leave it alone, okay?
This is really old.
Yeah. It's older than Daddy.
That's old.
Slide.
If it's older than Daddy, that's old.
Ow.
So this river was dammed up because of Savannah River, right?
Yes. So it was actually, the dam was created because Augusta kept flooding.
Okay.
So in order to stop Augusta from flooding, they filled in this area. There was a town that got filled in called Petersburg, Georgia. It was kind of a ghost town by the time they filled in the lake. But it was a boom town from, I want to say, 1790s before 1810, somewhere in there. It was a boom town because there was a tobacco inspection warehouse. And so all the tobacco in the area had to get inspected there. But then when cotton moved into the area, 1810-ish, it became pretty obsolete and a lot of people moved out of it.
Right.
By the time they filled in the lake, I know a lot of the houses over there were essentially like living in this. They didn't have electricity or water or anything. So,
That's cool.
so this house, this is all a replica, but in theory, that was the original cabin. When they moved here, they built that piece. That's where they raised their first 4 children. And then by I think it was the same week that the 5th was born, they built this section. So this big one. Obviously not in a week, but it got finished that week.
Right.
So if you guys want to go see this turned into the kitchen.
What's interesting is that a lot of those older buildings like that, the main living quarters and the kitchen were separate
Yes.
because the fire hazard.
Whoa.
So this was originally where they lived, and then they moved up here, and then they got the holes.
Yep. Still got the gun cords in here. Oh, watch out, bud.
He's okay.
He always falls.
Patrick, don't touch anything.
What's this?
Don't touch.
So this is the kitchen.
What about that thing?
So there still would have been a bed back here, and that was kept as kind of a guest bed / childbirth bed / sick bed.
No.
It makes a lot of sense to have a sick bed in the kitchen. Right?
Also, you put your guests where you have your babies. It's just interesting, but yep, that's what it was. And then if you notice the bed, the mattress at the time was really just like a cloth sack filled with hay. If you've ever heard hit the hay or don't let the bed bugs bite before you went to sleep, you'd hit your mattress in order to hopefully get the bugs to leave it. And then sleep tight is because this like colonial box spring thing we have happening here. And
Which is just rope?
Yep. And you tighten it every night before you went to sleep. There's a little knob. We have it nailed down. But if your guest had overstayed their welcome, what you did is before they went to sleep, you would turn the knob and they'd wake up on the floor. And that was their cue to get out of your house.
Oh my goodness.
So, that's just a coonskin cap. Have you ever seen, who is it, Davy Crockett?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, Mama told you that hole was open.
The candles.
So we actually make those here just for fun.
Yeah.
We do it with kids sometimes and things. But back then they would have been mainly made of beeswax and a type of animal fat. And the reason they have both on each side is because it's more effective to make 2 at once. And then you would have suspended it just like that from a tree branch, where it's hanging from 2 different points. And that's because squirrels and chipmunks love to eat those, and they can't necessarily balance on that branch.
So these are the tags you're talking about? So this is actually from his cabin, these traps?
No, those are from the 1980s. They're really little stickers that you're looking for original stuff. I think they're on here. Yeah, like, these are original, all the cutlery.
Okay.
So you'll notice that there's no spoons included with their sets of
What are these?
utensils.
Forks.
Those are forks.
Oh.
The curved end of the knives was your spoon. So when you ate, you would use the curved end of the knife. And then the prongs on your fork will actually tell you what era of fork is from. So 2 prongs is Revolutionary War era, 3 prongs is Civil War, and 4 is now. Fun fact. Men would have been the ones who ate at the table, which is boys 8 or older. Children ate on the floor. They would have actually used the wooden bowls. Men would have had like earthenware or ceramic. And then women ate after everybody else was done. So,
Really?
yeah.
What's left over?
Yep. Upstairs is where their oldest John Clarke lived when he was a little bit older. It was like his bachelor pad. John Clarke went on, he fought in the war under his father, and he went on to become a general and then governor of Georgia. So,
Oh, really?
This thing is my favorite thing in this room. It's a courting candle. And so at the time, dating wasn't so much a thing. So what you did is the girl sat here, suitor sat there, parents sat there, and on your first date, you had until this burnt all the way down, and then the boy had to leave. If at any point your parents decided they didn't like him, they extinguished it early, and he had to go. On your second date, you get this candle, and on your third date, you get all 3 of these. And that's because that's when you figured out marriage plans. So, 3 dates and you're married. Crazy.
Wow.
There's
No
lots to
swipe
talk
left,
about.
no swipe right.
No, none of that. And then you'll see we've got washboards in here. That's how they had to clean their clothes. They didn't have washers and dryers like we do. Butter churns. That's how you made butter back then. We sometimes do a little thing here where you put it, cream and salt in a little jar and you mix it up, and that's how you make butter. Anybody have any guess on what this is?
A broom. A broom.
Broom? So this is actually a mop. And it did exactly the opposite of what we want mops to do. And what you do is you get ash from the fireplace, you get dirt from outside, well, mud, and some animal fat. Mix it all together and use this to push it across the floor. Yeah, I know.
Is that for
gross.
sealing the floor?
So it did 3 things. It sanded it down because you'd have little kids in here running around. You didn't want them to get splinters in their hands and feet. It would preserve the wood because of the animal fat. And then it would fill in between the boards, and that was insulation. So yeah. You'll notice that they don't have a stove or oven or microwave. This is their combined stove, oven, microwave heater, their fireplace. These are from the original house. This is how you would put your pots over the fire, taking them off when you want them off. You'll notice they don't have a fridge. And that's because they would have salted or smoked anything they wanted to last a long time. Yeah. I have a lot of information to check at you about this room, so I'm trying to...
Is this like
Am I-
a closet?
That's a pie safe. It was just to keep bugs and stuff off the food. This isn't wood right here, it's just like a screen, so bugs don't get in there.
Like flies and things.
Yeah.
What is, so these are pine, I'm assuming, the boards.
Ooh, you might be getting past my knowledge.
I'm just curious what this is.
This is...
So, I mean, obviously it's to seal the boards and
Yes.
fill the holes with the
So originally this would have been made out of horsehair, dirt and mud, I think, as a mixture, but you'd have to redo it every year. When they first built this, they originally tried to make it accurate and they made it with that. Got real sick of doing it every year, so now it's cement.
That's what I was feeling, because it
Yeah.
feels like
It's
cement.
just cement.
Alright.
Something to hammer down the food.
It's an iron.
Yeah, you put that whole thing in the fire, warm it up, and that's how you smooth your clothes. I always think it's hilarious that they focused on smoothing their clothes when they had everything else to deal with, but you know.
That'd look good.
Had to look good while doing it. A lot of women in this area especially would have cooked over summer and such. It gets really hot in these houses. There's no AC. You would have done a lot of your cooking outdoors over a campfire. Hannah Clarke was a gently reared Virginian lady, so to her it was improper to cook outside, so she always cooked inside all times of the year. That little half door is to allow some airflow through here and keep the little kids in at the same time. You'll also notice that there's
Patrick, don't play with that, please.
there's no closets throughout the house. That's because the British also taxed doors. So you had the door that went into and out of your house, and you didn't want to have any extra doors because it was just extra money you had to pay. So that's why they would keep their clothes in chests. The last fun thing I know that the British like to tax is toothbrushes. And so the man of the family would have like a nice wood and boar bristle toothbrush that he would take with him if he went hunting or wherever. And the women and children all shared one toothbrush. And it was really just a sweet gum twig with yarn wrapped around one end. So that's gross. But, yeah. Oh, we might be reaching the end of my knowledge. You guys have any more questions?
This is wonderful.
There's lots of really cool information about Hannah Clarke, his wife, if you grab one of the handouts. She's a really cool lady. She did lots of stuff. Elijah Clarke was gone most of the time because he was off in war or fighting Native Americans.
So really, this should be like Hannah Clarke.
It should. If you'll notice, around the whole park, we have a lot of Hannah Clarke things. Like there's a Hannah Clarke trail, Hannah Clarke. It's like a whole place where we sell food in normal times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But she was really cool. There was one time that pre-Revolutionary War, a bunch of the neighbors' houses had been burnt down by Native Americans. A bunch of the people fled to this house because Elijah Clarke was known as a leader. So they were taking shelter here. And Elijah Clarke took all of the fighting men and went off to go try to track down these men. And little did he know they were actually hiding in the woods, waiting for them to leave. And so
they could attack.
yes, so they all converged on this fort, tried to attack. Hannah Clarke, it was only women, children, and old men here at the time. And she positioned an old man at every single port, or woman, and she had a child or woman stand next to them and reload their guns.
Wow.
And she was so efficient that they thought that a bunch of the fighting men had either returned or stayed behind, and they fled. Huh? So that's Hannah Clarke. Very cool lady.
That is.
Yeah. Another time, Elijah and John were both injured in one of the battles, and she strapped her baby to her chest and rode off to take care of them personally. I think they were either in South Carolina or North Carolina at the time. So
Wow.
Wow. That is
clearly
strong.
she thought that they couldn't take care of themselves, kept getting injured in war.
Yeah.